Wonderful. Well, I'm so glad that you all were able to join us today. And Amy, I'm just kind of looking at the agenda. Maybe I'll just, again, I'll set a little bit of context and then I'll turn it over to you. Okay.
Okay, sounds great.
So many of you are heavily engaged in this work already. So I don't mean to belabor it, but of course, the commission, along with our partners, really pushing for credit for prior learning expansion across the state. And starting with military, we have this parallel initiative with the Collegiate Purple Star, which also requires active military policies and practices for CPL. And, as part of that work, we're really going to be promoting the use of the ACE military guide and expanding that. But this particular pilot, I think, the reason why we were so excited Solid came to us is that it provides us the opportunity to explore how to go above and beyond those standard recommendations and really capitalizing on Solid's expertise, and which Amy and others can speak to. And so we hope to be able to demonstrate with this pilot throughout the academic year how we might expand at the use and recognition of military training and experience, and looking at cybersecurity. And I will note that this is also, we have all of these different moving parts, right? But this is also work that fits very nicely in with what the commission is doing in partnership with others to focus on supporting credential engines, course and competency pathways on cybersecurity. And our academic affairs team is working with various institutions to roll out a digital wallet for veterans interested in cybersecurity occupations. So there's a lot going on, and I think this all can inform the work. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Solid folks.
Thank you so much, Stacy. And it really is a pleasure to meet all of you. However, I think as I look around the team's room, we have met before. Certainly Rebecca, Allegra, Molly, and others. I don't want to leave anybody out, Kelly for sure. I'll tell you a little bit about my background and Dallas and kind of how we came to this space, but also why I'm so excited about this synergy that I'm seeing with Indiana and why Indiana seems to be as per usual, though, progressive and incredibly unique in their approach. I come from higher education, about 12 years, academic affairs, administration, business faculty, loved my time in higher education, but decided to make a different move. I'd also enlisted in the Air Force, the Air National Guard, back in 2002. So it was about 2015 that I made the transition to CALE, the Council for Adult and Experiential Learning. A lot of you are familiar with CALE, and I think I recognize so many faces in the room because we have seen each other at CALE conference, at CCME, at NASPA Veterans, all of those great things. So we're all very familiar in this space. And the work that I did there was really helping institutions, community college systems, state higher education systems, and workforce and economic development consortiums build their capacity to not only serve and support veterans, but I hope that we all on the line can agree that service and support, really boots on ground where it makes a difference, is recognizing and honoring the learning that our military men and women and our military affiliated communities on campus bring to the academic community through the evaluation and articulation of credit. We all wouldn't be in this room if we didn't think that that was true and that was worthy and that was a valuable goal and a great way to support our veterans. But we've also been tackling this for 25 years. Before post 9/11, we've been talking about this. Then post 9/11, GI Bill happened in 2009, and that was great. We saw this huge influx into higher education, and we still haven't cracked the military credit for prior learning nut. I think, and these are the discussions I've had with Dallas, with Stacy and others, and I can't wait to have it with all the folks in this room. The conversation now has to turn to how do we increase our capacity, faculty capacity, academic affairs, professionals capacity, registrar capacity, to actually do the evaluations and support. We keep throwing MCPL theory at institutions and saying, go run with it, but we're not recognizing that capacity is a problem. Also, recognizing that the ACE recommendations are an incredible foundation. They are what we build the house of MCPL upon, and that's what we're going to build the house of our work together on. But they're limited, right? Limited in scope. They have to be. It's just by the design. And so this is what Solid brings to this work. We have knowledge and deep understanding of the tasks, skills, work roles associated with almost all MOCs, but certainly in cybersecurity, which is we knew that this project had to be CTE focused, and cyber is a fantastic and incredibly relevant area for all of us to dive in on. But it's wider in scope than what we see in ACE credit recommendations. So we're going to be able to use our crosswalking that we have done with industry, with workforce, aligning to ONETs, aligning skills, like I said, work roles, all of those great things, in addition to those stated learning outcome-based credit recommendations that we see with ACE, to have a much more robust, and this is the purpose of this pilot, I think, an approach that has steeper and deeper and wider academic integrity. That's what this needs to be about, right? Academic integrity and evaluation. None of that can be compromised. So adhering to CAL's 10 standards for assessing prior learning, leveraging ACE credit recommendations at the foundation, and then identifying skills, competencies, and outcomes that are tangential and ancillary to these to really fully recognize the comprehensive amount of credit available to our students is what we're all after. And that's what we're here to do together. Stacey, I don't know if you've had a chance to send kind of that initial list of documents and things for institutions, for Vincennes and Ivy Tech and Purdue Global to be thinking about when you think about the courses that you'd like for us to take a look at and identify and align all of those skills and dynamics. And certainly we're going to get together on calls, friends from all of the institutions, to talk through the nuances of what we're looking for, making sure that the courses that you choose for evaluation are incredibly strategic. We know that articulation happens or is maximized with lower division courses. We know that it's maximized with cross-listed courses. And while cybersecurity is a cosmos or microcosmos of cyber in general, perhaps we can weave in some cyber things so that no MCPL scraps are left on the table for those that aren't necessarily in that security niche. So some things off the top of my head. Stacey, I'll turn it back over to you or anyone else in the room for their thoughts. I know that I've vomited verbally on the entire group on a Friday afternoon and we all just want to leave. So that's where I am, but go ahead, Stacey.
Well, I was going to say, I did not yet disseminate those documents because we were in the middle of doing a landscape assessment with this broader MCPL work, and we wanted to make sure we weren't just duplicating the asks. So what I have on my to-dos is kind of marry the two and see what we don't have, and then that's what we would be putting out to the group for the next step in terms of documentation collection.
Excellent. Fantastic. So that's where we're headed, and that's where this first phase is. And we've intentionally provided, I hope, plenty of time for you all to get back into the academic year and committees and the swing of things. The launch is always crazy. Every academic year, you think we do this every year. This should be pretty streamlined, and it never is. And so give you plenty of time to get back and get your feet underneath you with the academic year before Solid starts its piece of the analysis so that we can get all of those good nuggets of information that we need to do the best job that we possibly can, most comprehensive job.
So in terms of timeline, I think maybe that's like the next question. I don't have it in front of me, but for the document collection, I think we were looking into the next month or so.
Yeah, maybe a target. Well, I think we agreed on a target date of September 15. For those documents, with the intention that Solid would be starting its analysis October 1. And of course, we can keep receiving documents after October 1 to continue to make that analysis more robust. But if we can have foundational materials to launch from, then we'll spend October 1 through the end of this calendar year doing our analysis, and we'll have that analysis and then our own recommendations ready for your faculty who are the SMEs. Make no mistake, friends, Solid is going to be providing recommendations for credit and alignments. You're going to see the extent to which training and education in the military aligns with your stated learning outcomes for your courses, for your content areas, for your programs, and even for your institution. But your faculty are the subject matter experts that will be actually, doing the final check off, and the articulation should always rest with faculty. And that would be to the institutions starting January 1, and we'll give you that first quarter to do that, and we can have the back and forth if that's typical. This is the work that we do for the Department of Defense. This is the process that we use when we're evaluating for the Department of Defense. And those DoD SMEs come back and we have a back and forth. There are some questions. Well, what does this align? Well, can you give me more information about this? We have that back and forth exchange. Then the credit recommendations are made, which hopefully then, and the implementation of that would run March 31 through the end of your academic year. Hi, Allegra.
I just have a quick question because I want to make sure I'm following the thread that you're weaving through here. In terms of what we provide to Solid as that first step of documentation, is that just like our flat outcomes for our courses? Like these are the outcomes of the courses that we have in our catalog? Or is it like our alignment of the military learning to our courses?
Okay. I can send out a bulleted list, so don't worry about taking notes. Okay. But what ideally, the kind of comprehensive overview of what would be the most useful for us, certainly course syllabi with stated learning outcomes. If they're measurable, even better. Any associated skills, and then associated prereqs, because the outcomes of the prereqs, if there are any, are going to be relevant to the competencies and skills associated with that course that you're going to ask us to take a look at. And again, if they can be cross-listed, all the better. Then any associated program and institutional stated learning outcomes related to cyber, related to the discipline. It would be very helpful since the bulk of the work that we do for the Department of Defense is in credentialing. If there are a list of programs associated or partner credentials or credentialing bodies affiliated, such as CompTIA or something like that, that would be incredibly helpful. And then any kind of institution or program specific CPL policy or any existing cyber specific articulations and crosswalks that already exist, that we can take that into consideration and continue to build on that as well. I will send that bulleted list out if that is helpful, but that's the kind of information that we're looking for.
Yeah. And then the broader CPL policy and whatnot, I think that's the stuff that we've been collecting in this assessment that we just wrapped up and trying to, don't want to have to duplicate the work there.
Yeah. So. Yep. Whatever y'all already have, send it on over. That'd be great.
So one thing I think we want to make sure that we touch on before we, oh, Molly, you have a question?
Sure. And I think one of the things that would be helpful, our cyber curriculum committee is on board with this. We checked with them before we said yes to the pilot, but if there's a way, Amy, for you to outline for us, what is the typical role of the curriculum committee in these efforts so that we can help them plan ahead, especially for spring? And I'm about out of my lane here, so Rebecca, jump in. But I just want to make sure if there are additional expectations or meetings with them that we're outlining that from the get-go. Rebecca?
Yeah, that's what I was going to come in and say as well. Like, what is the framework? I'm assuming we're building the framework, and then what can we use then to that becomes a copy paste for other curriculum committees? And then what is the order? Because I think there's probably some lower hanging fruit in regard to these types of transfer or MCPL opportunities versus other sectors. So we have 75 curriculum committees, but if we can start thinking about like, what is that, it's going to go from IT to, public safety. I'm making it up. I'm assuming public safety will be high on the list, right? So that sort of order and sequencing, so we can think about how best to scale, would be really helpful. So thank you, Molly, for teeing that up. So,
and I think there'll be value in subsequent conversations with each of the institutions because you're each kind of probably structured a little bit differently. A question off the top of my head, do your curriculum committees typically do CPL evaluation, or do you have a cadre of faculty within the department that do CPL?
So our curriculum committees are made up of one representative from each of our 19 campuses. So it is a 19 faculty panel. And they typically do all of our crosswalk work.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. That's the kind of nuance that I'll need to know so that we can wire that appropriately. Like I said, it probably looks different from institution to institution, which is absolutely fine. But we'll certainly get more nuanced from here. But that sounds good, Rebecca. And yes, Molly, and I'll put some pencil to paper on what that expectation could look like. It should not. We're here to do the heavy lifting. That's the point of this pilot, right? Understanding that these committees and faculty who do CPL and your evaluators are probably at capacity. And this is a pain point we've been hearing for a decade. If Indiana can crack this nut, it's going to be a game changer. But that's the point of what we're here to help do and assist. And so it should be a relatively light lift for those committees.
I think
You
we
had
should
me
get
at you had me at you do all the work, Amy. I'm all in.
I love it.
And I had
I love
visions
it.
of T-shirts with pictures of squirrels and nuts and things like that. So,
Oh my goodness. I'm at my folks' house in Wisconsin today, and it's funny. I didn't know that squirrels barked until recently, but the squirrels out there a storm's coming, and I can hear them. They're barking out there. Did you know squirrels bark? But anyway, as long as we're getting T-shirts with squirrels, like maybe they could bark. I don't know.
I see some creative options here. I think before we end the call, you're probably wondering, so how often are we getting together? What kind of cadence of communication? Is this really more just via email? Are we going to gather? I think first I'll ask Amy what her thoughts are, but if the group, because there will be different stakeholders needed throughout this project.
Yeah, I would foresee, let's do what we can to do the gathering of information and materials. Again, with the launch of the academic year, I know that's going to be a task in and of itself. Once we get those materials, I think the next logical step would probably be to get with representatives from each of academic representatives from each of the institutions to find out what your process is, not just policy. We need the policy, but to Rebecca's point and Molly's, each institution probably has a different process so that we're able to engage and the data that we give you is engaging in your process seamlessly. And that's what we'll probably end up. Let's start maybe toward the end of September with those one-off meetings to establish then and identify what the meeting cadence should be, what the communication mode and style should be for each of the institutions, and then what a larger cadence should be, because we want this to synergize. We don't want them to we don't want a process that's necessarily targeted for each institution, but we need to be mindful of those so that, like I said, just to create efficiencies and streamline things.
Absolutely. So
kind of TBD at this point, Stacy.
Yeah, but we
Okay.
will be following up with this group on the communication and what it is exactly that we're needing from you early next week. So,
Yep.
Any other questions or comments before we close it out? Deanna.
Just ensured people saw in the chat, if you would, just helping Solid stay organized internally, if you can send all of your documentation, communicate that through me, or if you have a question, unless Amy prefers something different, I'm just going to try to help the team stay organized and compile everything together.
Will documents be flowing through you, Stacy, or would you prefer each of the institutions to send them to us directly?
They can go to you directly. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Deanna. Thanks for flagging that.
Perfect. My email's in the chat. And if we can include it in maybe the follow-up email as well.
Yes.
For everyone.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Deanna.
Yep.
Great. Let's go crack nuts.
I love it.
Tara.
I love it. Have a wonderful
Okay.
weekend, everybody. So excited about this work. All right. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for including us.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Thanks for participating.